good manner, they're going to understand the etiquettes of conversation. And so, subhanAllah, they're so beautiful. I mean, there were so many hadith here that I could have gone through, and Quranic verses to go through the etiquettes, the adab of how we engage with one another, how we should engage with another person, with another human being. And I think that that's very, very important before we get into the etiquettes. And let's remember that when we're communicating, that's what we're doing. No matter what method, whether it's a Facebook post or a tweet or a personal conversation, but we're communicating with another human being, another soul, another creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He made the person that you're talking to, just like He made you. And so therefore, that person opposite you doesn't matter whether they're the rudest, smelliest, most obnoxious person on the face of the planet. Allah created them. And they have a soul. And that, once you start remembering that, puts your communication in a different place. So, the etiquette. When you're greeted with a greeting, reply with a better one or return it. Do not turn your back on one another. If there are 3 of you, never should 2 of them talk without the third until you mix with other people, for this would grieve the third. And I was thinking about this etiquette of conversation, and I was thinking about it in relation to you guys as medics. And I was thinking to myself in hospital, in a ward, when the doctors come around with their lab coats and their little boards and they have conversations. And I was thinking to myself, goodness gracious. The doctor that never looks you in the eye when he's talking to you, never actually talks to you, only talks to your shoulder. Right? And I was thinking of the doctor that actually doesn't talk to you, but just talks to their colleagues about you, as if you're not there. I can remember when my son was ill, and we were in hospital, and the doctor and the consultant, he was like, he doesn't know interested in me. And he's like, oh, well, people where we come from. And I was like, well, excuse me, I don't know where you come from, but I'm English, right? He was Lebanese, right? And he was like, I think, he's got nephrotic syndrome and polyps. And I was like, well, excuse me, I don't. Hello, right? But doesn't want to, he's not interested in me. There's a patient down there, what does she know? What could she possibly know about her son? And that obnoxiousness is very present, may I say, amongst them. It really can. And as a patient being on the receiving end, if you wanted to take within your faith, to absorb that etiquettes of communication, to have bedside manner, to really communicate with your patients, to talk to them, to explain things, to show them, to look them in the eye, to not be talking. And this final one, and I love this final thing, because it refers to so many of our conversations. A group of 3, 2 are just having a conversation and the other person's standing there, which I think in Urdu would be like they call them the bone in the kebab, the sort of, it's like the gooseberry, the person who's just stood there really not knowing what, is going on. Even worse, when those 2 people are speaking in a different language. Wow, this is a big no-no as far as Islamic etiquettes go. Now that can be English language, and they don't speak the English language. It can also be doctor language, normal, regular human being. When you start and you start talking about all of the things which you understand, and that third person, perhaps your patient, doesn't know what you're talking about, right? And so these etiquettes of conversations are so fundamental to the art of communication. Oh, and good presentation. When we're going back to sensory input, how communication's all 5 senses, right? I love this. Whoever has a bath on Friday puts on his best clothes, puts some scent on, and smells nice, that attends Friday prayers without crossing over people's necks and generally causing a nuisance, performs whatever rakats he could, that keeps quiet when the Imam mounts the pulpit until he concludes his prayer. His prayer will be an atonement for the whole week preceding that prayer. But look at what's being packed into this in terms of presentation, in terms of etiquette. To look nice, to smell nice, to be a presentation of your sense, the senses for the other person. To not go scrambling all over them in prayer, just being a sort of physical annoyance. So, don't get in their way. And I mean, there's so many parallels you can think of this. The presentation of you're in marketing, the presentation of an advert, not the pop-up that comes up onto your, you're on the computer or something, there's a pop-up, that's a sort of scrambling over the neck of you, it sort of like, drives you crazy. The type of how are you engaging people in the hospital? Are you going to be presented, are you going to be, obviously medics have their nails clipped and everything, but it's just the essence of everything. It was so pinpoint about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it wasn't frivolous. It wasn't that he just, beautified himself out of sort of some sense of fashion or vanity, but just as a sort of gift to the people around him, that we should, present ourselves well. Be pleasant and cheerful. Have a happy disposition. To communicate that. Nobody loves a misery. Look, be modest in thy bearing, and lower thy voice. For behold, the ugliness of all voices is the loud voice of asses. Basically, let's not sound like donkeys, right? The braying of the ass, the loud, brash personality who's so full of himself. That's not the way we communicate. That's not the way we walk on the earth. Now, there are times when you might meet somebody who's a bit like that on the previous verse, and they rile you up, and they wind you up. And they can do this face to face, they can do this on Facebook. The Bedouin to the Messenger of God. Teach me some words which I can live by. Do not make them too much for me, lest I forget. The Messenger of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do not be angry. And the Qur'an reminds us, those who spend in God's cause in prosperity and in adversity, who repress their anger and who pardon men. Verily God loves the doers of good. It's that sense that we control ourselves when we communicate with another. We don't just react on our basest instincts. That person annoys me, I retaliate with anger. We control it, we repress it, we hold it, we deal with it, make wudu if necessary. Rage doesn't have to become your, the default setting in your communication. And in response to provocation, the true servants of the Most Gracious are only they who walk gently on earth, and who, whenever the foolish address them, reply with words of peace. I think this is absolutely vital in our time now as Muslims, in the current environment in Britain and around the world. It's a time when we are provoked, when people want to get a rise out of us. They want us to be the headline grabbing ugliness and aggression. And we have to rewrite the script. It's very simple. You don't always have to respond to provocation. And if you do, when you meet those who foolishly address you, you reply with words of peace. That doesn't make you weak. In fact, it makes you very strong. Because it's easy to communicate aggression in the face of provocation. It's easy to respond in the way that they want you to respond. It's very hard to be an effective communicator, to give them back words of peace. But we have to rewrite the script if we are to present Islam as the deen of nobility and dignity and beauty, which it is, as opposed to the ugliness and aggression that we see on our headlines. And so that's why it's absolutely vital that we manage to control our anger and that we respond to provocation with peace.